And away we go. As always, starting the episode with what we've sent in the group chat. We've seen on our pipelines. Social media want us to react with or something. I don't know how else to put it. I could go many ways, but I won't. I don't want to give social media too much credit these days. It's not worth it. Alright, starting off with Eric sent a Twitter X post by the account Red at Red Cinema. The caption says that he doesn't care if people think he's crazy or delusional and only truly cares about chasing his passion. Heart emoji. Eric then responded saying, I'm convinced that this isn't Kai. He's a clone. Eric has going down a particular rabbit hole about streamers, what they say, do they mean what they say, and is this another copy of this said person, or is this the actual person from the very moment they have rose into the limelight? This is really hard to pinpoint. At least from the naked eye, it's very hard. There's always going to be there are key facial features that people will point to say, "Oh, that's not the real person. That's a clone," because the original person has their earlobes attached, not lopsided, or their eyes are too close together. Some might say the hairline is too far back. The original person has their headline in a straight line with little forehead showing. So those are the kinds of things that people would say to say, "Oh, that's not the real person. That's a clone," because that thing and this thing, it's very different. I remember people talking about Joe Biden not being the real Joe Biden. You know, the one that became president. At least that's what I've heard. Uh, uh, those, those were the days. That was something. Either way, the Joe Biden is now retired, had a good run, and now can enjoy the rest of his life until his time has come to enter the spiritual plane of, well, whatever his spirit takes him. So back to Kai Cenat. I don't have a strong opinion on this. I will say this isn't the first time hearing about celebrities having multiple stunt doubles, alternative versions of themselves, or even identical doppelgangers. I know, I know those kinds of people do exist where features facially or body structure can be very identical to the actual celebrity, and that is that. Risk 11 has sent many things, two screenshots and a couple of text messages. The first screenshot shows the headline from the Wall Street Journal via the MSN app. The headline reads, Paramount wins bidding war for Warner Discovery after Netflix drops out. Risk 11 then responds with, it's official. Netflix dropped out this great stuff. And then Risk 11 sent another screenshot showing the stock valuations of shares from Paramount Skydance, looking like it's on a bull run, or a bullish run. And numbers, according to the Paramount Skydance stock shares on the screenshots Risk 11 shared, it looks pretty good. Risk 11 responds to that screenshot directly saying, this is great stuff. And actually, a couple of months ago, I did say 6 months from the moment I said what I said months ago on one of the podcasts I run, it's going to come down to whichever of between whether it be Netflix or Paramount, one of them is going to get the deal that they want. And now, turns out Paramount is the one getting the deal out of Warner Brothers. And now Warner Brothers is eventually, if not now, going to be under the umbrella that is Paramount. So you can see stuff like Looney Tunes, Animaniacs, and of course, in the DC Comics franchise, going to be intertwined with the Paramount universe. Imagine the crossovers that could come out of these franchises just mixing with one another and go on crazy adventures. That'll be pretty cool. Very cool indeed. That's all I care about. The crossovers. It's a momentum. It's a it's a generational moment in our lifetime that not many people will actually experience the moment it actually happens. Sure, they can look back on it. The moment it drops, those are the days that all of us, as of right now, will not stop talking about for a very, very long time. Eric Taylor sent another Twitter X post by the account Vision 4, the number 4, the blind, at Vision 4, the blind. The caption reads, I can't get over that Donald Trump's grandmother was named Elizabeth Christ Trump, and she died on the 6th of June, 1966. Or in short date format, 6666. Wow. Mental. That's a lot to get into. That's a lot to get into. And she was born in Karlstadt, Germany, so that's the lineage of the Trump family for you. I'm just looking at Elizabeth Christ Trump. It's wow. That is something. Not sure if this was intentional or it's just something that just came popping into their minds. Or even if this was what Elizabeth intentionally chose for her legal name to be and just lived the rest of her life having that as her name. And I know a lot of people are going to be pointing to the death date, 6666. I don't know what else to say from that point. It is just 4 sixes in a row, not 3, so you can't say this is some kind of devil worship bullcrap. I'm not defending that. I'm not defending such stuff. I'm saying that if people are saying that the death date of Elizabeth Christ Trump is how something demonic affiliated, you take 1 6 out, then yeah, that'd be spot on. It's the extra 6 that is not quite there. It's not exactly where it would be. So, alright, then that's all there is to it. Next, I sent a Twitter X thread. It's from a post, but I've actually sent in a short thread from that post. I'll read you the whole thread. So, firstly, just write this a bit. The original post comes from Ernest Wong on Twitter X at Ernest Wong WM, and he writes, "We studied Uber, and while there is value in the network, ultimately couldn't see how they thrive in an AV world where suppliers get increasingly consolidated, and Uber does not own the core technologies. Please tell me why I'm wrong." Another Twitter X user responds to Ernest Wong. This Mikey likes it at MTATSIS. Not sure what that would say. Mikey responds with, at Grok, tell him why he's wrong like a WWF wrestler. And then Grok responds to Mikey to the post by Ernest Wong saying, listen up, jabroni. You think Uber gets body slammed in the AV squared circle clause because they don't own the steel? Question mark. Wrong, brother. Uber's the undefeated platform champion with 200 million plus riders screaming for rides. That's the demand that pins every supplier. They just dropped Uber Autonomous Solutions, partnering with Waymo, Lucid, Nuro, VW, Baidu, over 20 alliances. Suppliers consolidate? Question mark. Uber aggregates them all, runs the fleet ops, data, charging hubs, and books the trips. AVs change the cars, not the marketplace, King. Uber's dropping robo-taxis in 15 cities by year end, brother. What you gonna do when the network effects run wild on ya? Boom. I didn't give that much justice, but I just reading what Grok said as if it was a WWF wrestler. And this is actually what I responded to the lads in the group chat. I responded to that thread directly, saying quality laughing emoji. I was laughing my arse off. Just the first part. Listen up, jabroni. That got me instantly. Brilliant. Look, regardless of who's in the right and who's in the wrong, what's important is you get your message across in a way that engages with the consumer or the viewers. Like I have engaged with this, how a WWF wrestler would say it. I found it quite funny, actually, in my opinion. Why can't a lot of responses on any social media platform look like this? I'm all for other ways of getting message across or explaining how things work in this world. That that what I just read, brilliant. I absolutely loved it. If most people, not everyone, but most people responded to posts on social media like Grok like Grok has done, then maybe this world may not be so bad. It's not going to fix everything. At least it does help with tackling. No, not tackling. It at least adds humor and an extra layer of clarity to whatever goes on in today's world. So yeah, love it. If only responses like this happen more often, then I would continue using social media a lot more often than I would usually normally. So that is everything that me and the lads have shared to the group chat so far as of the last time we recorded an episode. So with that being said, let's get into the rest of the news. Collective bargaining in public transport. Who was affected by the warning strikes? You know what? I've actually read this a while ago. But you know what? I'll read it again anyway. Let's see if there's any updates to the last time I've read this. A Verdi representative told German press agency that a strike has been underway since 3 a.m. at Berlin's largest public transport company, the Berliner Verkehrs Verkehrsbetriebe. The union has called for strikes in almost all German states. The warning strikes will begin at different times in each city, depending on when work starts. In Lower Saxony, a no-strike agreement is in effect until the end of March, meaning industrial action in public transport is not permitted until then. Deutsche Bahn, and therefore its S-Bahn services, are also unaffected by the strike, as the current wage negotiations do not apply to the company. In some areas, Deutsche Bahn has announced that it will expand its S-Bahn services due to the warning strikes. Verdi had initially left open the question of whether there would be further warning strikes in public transport. In Baden-Württemberg, according to a press release, a decision will be made on Monday as to whether Verdi will call for further warning strikes in light of the ongoing negotiations with the Municipal Employees Association. According to Verdi's announcement, the warning strikes will last until Sunday night in most regions. In some places, work was already halted on Thursday, and some local public transport companies could still be affected by walkouts on Saturday. The warning strikes are the second large-scale action in the current public transport wage negotiations. During the first action on February 2nd, public transport in large parts of the country came to a near standstill. In the collective bargaining negotiations, Verdi is demanding significantly better working conditions. For example, shorter working weeks and shift times, longer rest periods, but also higher bonuses for night and weekend work. In Bavaria, Brandenburg, Saarland, Thuringia, and at the Hamburg public transport company, Hochbahn, negotiations are also underway regarding higher wages and salaries. According to Verdi, the talks have made little progress recently. Employers have also complained about the lack of progress in the negotiations. For example, the Berlin Transport Authority, BVG, the largest public transport company in Germany, criticized Verdi for not yet clarifying which demands the union considers most important. Juve. Whatever happens, you gotta do, you know? So, in regards to the strikes in public transport within Germany, I'm not gonna argue with the strikes. If it happens, it happens. Otherwise, you just gotta prepare yourselves. Oh, I thought something happened for a second. So, look, the strikes regarding public transport in Germany, if they happen, they happen. And it's down to people to plan ahead of time in regards to how to get from place to place, even with these delays happening, or if services don't even run at all. In regards to what demands are most important, I'd say make that clear. Yes, if you want to strike, you want employers to meet demands, so be it. If you're going to ask employers what demands you want, you got to outline what is a high priority. You can't just say, we want higher salaries, a larger wage, give bonuses on the weekends. Whilst even when you outline what are the demands that employees want, which of these demands are the most important? Even if there are some demands that aren't met by the employers, at least pick something that you would hope to be agreed upon regardless. And then from that point on, employers would say, okay, so that's what you want, we can make that work, and then end of. There's going to be some union workers that aren't going to take that. Just because you meet with one demand does not mean we're going to go back to work. We want all of these demands to be met. In a lot of cases, it's not going to be possible. I'm not against solidifying and meeting with such demands in negotiations. There are moments in time when every demand and negotiation that union workers want from their employers, not everything is going to be met, and not all of the negotiations are going to be made possible after the strike. Again, I have no problems with these strikes. It is important you say what needs improving within the workplace. At least have a clear idea on what negotiations or demands are most important to the entire union as a whole. At least it gives a starting point for the employees to say, we'll look into it. Alright, we come to an agreement. I'll allow you to provide a higher salary and these bonuses on these working holidays. If you work, of course, because in Germany, there are a minimum number of days that people in Germany are legally required to be given. Not maximum, minimum. Like, it is by law required for German workers to be off work. So, that's what I've heard from a while back. If the union Verdi says which of the negotiations or demands is most important, and if the employers say, okay, we can make this work, at least it's a start. Whilst it's not what all union workers want, you gotta start somewhere. And whatever that is, at least pick one that is believed to be the most important negotiation criteria for the entire union. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. That is all that has to be said on my end. Hundreds rally against proposed budget cuts to San Francisco's Environment Department. Hundreds of climate activists filled the steps of San Francisco City Hall on Wednesday to rally against possible funding cuts to the city's Environment Department. When climate justice is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back, shouted activists. The Environment Department helps formulate and oversee climate goals for the city that promote sustainability, clean energy, and the reduction of pollutants. Let's see what else it goes into. Oh, it's not. Oh, there we go. For fiscal year 2026 to 2027, Mayor Daniel Lurie has proposed budget cuts to the department that could eliminate positions and several initiatives related to implementing and keeping track of the city's climate and sustainability goals. We're being told that many of us are at risk of losing our jobs, said Nicole Appenzeller, who works at the department's electric vehicle ombudsperson. You cannot cut climate stuff and reach your climate goals. You cannot slash the workforce and call yourself a climate leader without us. Lurie's current budget proposal allocates about $545,000 from the city's general fund to the department, a nearly 80% reduction compared to fiscal year 2022 to 2023, when the budget included nearly $3 million from the general fund. According to SF Environment Director Tyrone J.U.E., the proposed cuts would force the department to eliminate 8 staffing positions that work on the city's climate action plan, a framework that outlines and monitors the city's work towards reducing pollutants and achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions. The funding cut would also eliminate the department's Climate Equity Hub, a program that allows low-income residents to transition from gas to electric home appliances for free. If we don't fund this work, we are defunding our future, Appenzeller said. We are here to fight for our jobs, but we are also here to fight for clean air, for climate action, and for a livable city. The crowd of environmental advocates and labor union leaders held up signs and gave speeches, with supervisors Raphael Mandelman and Jackie Fielder joining the rally to show their support. Our city has collectively set a climate action plan to ensure our communities are not only climate resilient, but also proactive in protecting our planet's health, safety, and ultimately, our ability to thrive, Fielder said in a speech. But now we're at risk of losing this hard-won progress. I had a feeling something like this was going to happen. A city like San Francisco, with a massive budget, yet not many people. Well, San Francisco is a big city, yet San Francisco has a lot of money to work with. And for a city that cares so much for their own environments and providing wealth equality amongst the residents, I can see why there would be protests about cutting the environment department in San Francisco. What I want to know is, why now? I'm not saying I agree with this decision that Mayor Daniel Lurie has done. I'm asking, why now? If it is to be believed by Lurie himself that whatever cuts that has to be done would be the environment department, and if any previous mayors could have been at the verge of actually doing what Daniel Lurie had done, why now? Why now is the mayor of San Francisco thinking or planning to cut the environment department from the San Francisco citywide administration? And whilst when this does go ahead and the environment department in San Francisco is no more, the residents of San Francisco will eventually take into their own hands to establish some kind of organization, environmental organization for San Francisco for themselves. And again, I am not against people advocating for climate change, protecting the environment, our climate, environments. If you think you could rely on your local or federal governments to provide fundings for the work you're doing or for the cause you're advocating for, oh boy, wait until you find out the hard way. And again, I have said this many times, not that I'm going against what these departments are doing. If it is, in my opinion, naive to think you could rely on your government, nationally or at the local level, to push forward or progress with whatever initiatives or works that you've been working on or you plan on working on for the years to come. If Daniel Lurie does not go back on this proposal or execution of getting rid of the environment department, who's not to say that San Francisco residents aren't going to set up their own organization tackling the environment for themselves? If that happens, go ahead. I want to see how that goes. Let's just wait and see what happens next. I would love to see if anything is to be done amongst the residents of San Francisco. Grasslands. Grasslands disappearing 4 times faster than forests. Published this week in PNAS. The study found grasslands, savannas, and wetlands converted nearly 4 times faster than forests over 2005 to 2020. Livestock-driven agriculture accounted for about half of non-forest conversion to pasture, with pasture and cropland for feed dominating losses in Brazil, Argentina, the United States, and China. Grasslands store about 34% of terrestrial carbon and contain about 33% of global biodiversity hotspots, while wetlands convert at half the rate of drylands but remain vital climate sinks. Researchers urge policymakers and commodity-dependent companies to include grassland conversion in conservation targets, noting Brazil accounts for 13% of affected areas, while the soy moratorium shifted expansion into the Cerrado savanna. The research team used land use datasets, allocation models, and trade data to link conversions, noting impacts beyond tropical forests in Russia, China, the United States, and the European Union. So, grasslands is disappearing. They're turning into something else, and people are saying, "Oh no, that's a problem." Fair enough. Fair enough. It is important. It is very concerning that there is changes into our terrain. If anyone is going to tackle the changes to the terrain and our environments in our communities, what I believe is important is don't just plant new trees or plants in your area. Look to see if there is any roots within the soil or ground beneath you. There was a YouTube video I watched a while ago. It was taking place somewhere in Africa. It's basically when you're watering or cultivating small plots of land in a circle, in a crop circle. I don't think it's called a crop circle. It, from what I saw in that YouTube video, it looked like a circle. Out of the branches or trees, flowers that grows there, you basically prune out the axed branches or plants from the ground, leaving few selected tree branches to continue growing. Essentially, you're just eliminating any vegetation that isn't that big, so that the bigger vegetation has all the energy to continue growing and growing, and eventually you have essentially a group of trees, and you repeat this process in other plots of land all across the nation or somewhere wherever you are around the world as a way to revitalize and revive the local biodiverse ecosystem which your community is surrounded by. I know there will be people that's going to point to the solutions of planting trees in flatland grounds. Don't just plant any kind of tree. Understand what the terrain you're on is, what are the conditions of the soil, and the seasonal changes year round. Then, it's all the case of observing the ground which your environment is surrounded by, giving the strongest vegetation within your area to continue flourishing without any interruptions from other smaller plants, to the point they can continue growing independently all on their own, or with little amount of water needed to continue growing. That is as brief of an explanation I can give regarding a YouTube video or series of YouTube videos I've watched about people trying to revive or trying to enhance local terrains within Africa where the environment is very dry and arid to then eventually become grasslands where there's trees, bushes, and loads of grass laying about. Specifically, the kind of grass that you would see animals eating. I think that's great. It's not everyone's cup of tea, in my opinion. It sounds like a great idea. It's unfortunate not many people are going to pick up on these ideas. It is worth noting that if you give these ideas a shot, you might see changes within the environment which we sit on. Even when there's people saying that climate change is a hoax, you're being fear-mongered, you're being scared into changing your way of life. And to some extent, it is true. I'm not saying I agree with them. Someone is going to bring these points up, and there's not much we can argue about on those grounds. For the most part, at least understand the local surroundings that you live in. Take care of it, even if it's not being getting enough attention, or doesn't get much attention around the world. NASA delays first Artemis moon landing in 2028. Shifts Artemis 3 to low Earth orbit test mission. On Friday, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman announced a major overhaul that redefines Artemis 3 as a 2027 orbital docking test and moves the crewed lunar landing to Artemis 4 in 2028, after Artemis 2 was rolled back to the Vehicle Assembly Building. The Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel said the original plan lacked adequate safety margin and recommended restructuring. For the 2027 test, NASA plans Artemis 3 to carry astronauts aboard Orion to dock with one or both lunar landers from SpaceX and Blue Origin and test new moonwalking suits in microgravity. Officials told contractors that NASA plans to halt work on the exploration upper stage and adopt a standardized upper stage, cancelling Boeing's roughly $2 billion contract and focusing on boosting SLS production and flight cadence. Looking ahead, NASA plans to redefine Artemis 3 as a 2027 test and pursue up to 2 moon landings in 2028, with Artemis 2 expecting no earlier than April 1st. For most of this, I was like, it could go either way. I see two sides of it. However, before I get into that, this one line, Artemis 2 expected no earlier than April 1st. Now, for those who've been living under a rock most of their life, if you don't know why April 1st is such a big deal, It's that time of the year. We could all play a joke on people, say things we don't mean, all in the name of having a laugh and pranking people. That day is called April Fool's. April Fool's Day is that day of the year when anyone can say anything without without even the slightest hint of validity or even checking. People use April 1st as a day when they can say anything that isn't even remotely true and pass it off as is the truth. I'm not sure that I know people who do that. I know that people will play pranks and jokes on other people on April 1st, but that's pretty much the premise of what I understand of April 1st. April Fool's Day. So, hearing that no earlier than April 1st, now, although they can be, whilst they'll be much earlier, whilst they'll be much earlier than April 1st for Artemis 2 to be prepared to continue its mission and whatnot, if it's done on April 1st, I'm telling you right now, no one is going to be taking NASA seriously. I'm not talking about the conspiracy theorists. They don't take NASA serious at all anyway. Most people that do look up to NASA and their research, if they announce anything or do anything on April 1st, oh boy, a lot of people are going to be having a field day with this. This is going to be a massive field day for the people that say that things ain't real crap. It's going to be wild. So let's just wait till April 1st, or at least a few weeks earlier until April 1st to see if NASA does anything or refines or looks into the problems with Artemis 2, see if they're ready to go, and yeah. So back to what I was originally going to say, if it wasn't for the last sentence, I did say a while back, this could go either way. On one hand, any works regarding air travel, space travel, or any kind of travel above the ground, many meters off the ground, it is very important that there is no faults and not even the slightest scratch is to be seen or even be on the outer surface of any craft of any kind. Even the smallest margin of error can be catastrophic to the entire vehicle and even the mission. I will say that. On the other hand, again, there's going to be people that can say that, NASA's delaying it because they're trying to excuse not showing any footage of their space missions or whatnot. They do have a point. Not that it's true. That is a good point, and this is a point that could apply to anything. Why isn't there any footage from the last award show? Was there any winners that could have won instead? Why wasn't there any footage with any fighting incidents outside of school? Was there information that teachers or other staff members weren't supposed to make public to the world? Not saying that moments like that ever happening. If there isn't anyone showcasing or documenting any events, what is there for these people to hide? Why would they hide it? It is a very important question, and it's a question we may not get to until the next few years. By that point, it's already too late. It is already too late. The madness, the wildness, mentally. Only time will tell if anything comes to fruition beyond that point. The Polish government plans to ban children under 15 from using social media. The bill includes fines for platforms and mandatory age verification for users. Warsaw could come into conflict with major American tech companies, Bloomberg reports. Poland is pushing forward a new bill, drafted by the ruling Civic Coalition, that would ban children under 15 from accessing social media. The bill would impose fines on platforms that allow their services to remain accessible to younger users. Companies would also be required to verify the age of their customers. Education Minister Barbara Novaka, stated in an interview with Bloomberg that the fine amounts are still being discussed. She expects the law to come into force before the beginning of 2027. We see that the mental health of children and young people is deteriorating, and we see a decline in their intellectual abilities, Novatska stated. She added that the government is forced to act because the platforms don't adhere to their own rules and don't ensure proper age verification. Poland joins other European countries, including Denmark, France, Spain, and the United Kingdom, which have already announced plans to restrict minors' access to services that regulators label as harmful and addictive. Australia was the first to introduce a similar ban late last year. The initiative could increase tensions in relations with the US, given the stance of President Donald Trump and his tech company allies. However, Novatskaya noted that she does not view the bill in a geopolitical context. Frankly, who owns a particular platform is a complete secondary issue, Novatskaya emphasized. The minister added that the government must be proactive. We must take preventative measures rather than guessing whether this or that country will view this in a certain way. I believe that protecting children is in the interest of every country. As a reminder, Australia was the first country in the world to officially ban access to major social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, for children under 16. The new legislation places responsibility for age verification squarely on the shoulders of tech giants, with fines of up to $2 million for systemic violations. I've said so much about the social media ban for quite a while now. I will say there are issues to social media, whether they are addictive to people, it affects people's mental capability. Those are very good points. I'm not going to argue with that. I agree with them. I would also say that it is also important for people to use social media as means of connecting with the wider world, understand of what goes on in today's society, or even to the extent that social media is required in a particular workplace for young people. If there are minors during work experience, they're asked to do any social media work. However, the law says anyone under 15 or 16, they're not allowed to use social media. How on earth would the work experience placement serve any use to those minors that try to get an understanding of what the workplace is, especially if they fully utilize social media use? And these minors that are doing work experience, they're not old enough to use social media. Those are points that, like myself, there will be other people saying and bringing up those points. And I think for this project that me, Eric, and Shadowmine are working on, someone actually commented that. Let me get that up. Someone mentioned very good points. Oh yeah, I think it was on the Orbit Discord server, which is a completely separate project ran by Jack Hannon. Actually, it was on the official server for our project. Oh, it's been a while since I looked at that. Did I just scroll past it? Oh yeah, it was on the Orbit Discord server. Okay, so this person has said, in my honest opinion, it should be under 13s legally cannot access social media. People between 13 to 16 can access it, however, with strict safety controls and hard screen time limits. And parents can manage accounts. Anyone over 16 can do whatever the heck they want. And I responded, for real, this might be a great idea. And again, point about social media being addictive and affecting our psychological brain capacity. Those are very important points, and especially in today's world where we're seeing children doing whatever they're doing with their hands, two numbers that, if put the two together, they add up to the number 13. Coincidentally, for some reason, it's funny. It was funny at the first few times. Now it's just getting annoying and more so concerning. And actually, another thing, people say this is people in local or national governments saying they're doing the social media ban laws for the name of the children, for their own safety. Yet, these people never say what those concerns are for the children, what dangers there are for children on social media, beyond the content that is, like they say, and even when people say what these children say repeatedly, which, although funny at first, it gets very annoying very fast. Beyond those two, they don't give any other reason, or even they don't go deeper into further detail about the two which they say is a concern for children. And seeing these laws passed regarding social media bans for minors, it's like the government is doing the jobs what the parents are supposed to be doing for their children. Why are we letting our governments be the nannies to the children that we're supposed to be responsible for? Not to say that all parents are bad. They're certainly not. Parents are doing the best they can. We should take into our own hands being responsible for not just our own actions, but for the actions of others, ensuring their own safety and their own protection from other harms. We shouldn't allow governments to be the supervisor in our lives. The government should not be doing the jobs that the parents should be doing already. And whatever this person said about under 13s legally cannot access social media, 13 to 16 can use it with very strict safety measures in place. I agree with that. I think when people say 15s or 16s, anyone under that can't use social media, whilst I understand the intention, the execution, it seems a bit much. Even if there is legitimacy and validity into preventing young people from using social media, given the effects it could have on those children, under 16s is a limit far too high. I'd say anyone under 13 legally is not allowed to use social media. 13 to 16 under supervision by their parents on what they do on social media, and also screen time limits. Which actually, even for people over 16, this project that me, Eric, and Shadowminder are working on, I am thinking of planning on having screen time limits for the relaunch fight anyway, even if people are over 16. Mainly down to the fact that the effects of social media can be harmful if we use it for too long, and if the content that we do see affects us negatively in ways that are beyond our control. And if people think, oh, let's watch an ad to reduce the time, I'm like, no, absolutely not. There was a time that was an idea. If you had to ask me about it, I'm against that. I believe there should be time, at least 2 hours, off social media each day for people to do whatever people would be doing if smartphones weren't in existence. We don't have the technology we have today. Where would they go? Would they go outside? Do they have jobs to attend to? Would they spend time with their family and so on? Those are just my thoughts on social media and just limiting how much time we use our devices and other platforms. I think that would be very useful for us. And that is it for the episode.